Hey everyone, I'm Matt Wilson, Senior Product Manager at GitLab. I am going to show you some of the features of vulnerability management. I'm going to do kind of a quick overview of how you might see an interaction between a developer and somebody on the security team, all inside of the same tool. And I'll call out some of the highlights of the features as we go through them. So one thing to note here, as the developer, I'm going to be in this dark mode here and got my little evil monkey up there. And on the security persona side, I'll have the light mode. So that's what we're looking at here. So let me start with this project. As a person on the security team, I want to make sure that I'm maintaining the integrity from the security perspective on my project. I don't want new vulnerabilities being introduced without me knowing about it. So a good way to help prevent that is by using one of our merge request approvals. So this is something I'm going to set up on my project. So I'm not going to go into the details here, but I've already got some security scanners configured to run on my pipelines. What this vulnerability check rule is going to let me do is I'm going to set this on my main branch here. It's my default branch. I'm going to require one approval from somebody on the security team. In this case, it's me as my security user persona. Now, any new feature branch for this project that targets the main branch that introduces or would introduce a new high, critical, or unknown vulnerability is going to require my approval as the security user before it can merge. So this is a great way to help keep the health of my security health of my project intact while not slowing down the developer workflow if they're not introducing any serious security issues. So now I'm back over to the developer side. So I have this project here. This is just a Python, it's a Django example project. And let's say that I know that I'm going to add something to the project, and in my requirements for the file or for the project, I need to update one of the dependencies. So I'm going to actually do this all inside of GitLab. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new branch to hold my change. So I'm going to call this pigments update. I've done this a few times, so we'll call this pigments update 3, creating it from my main branch. And there we go. So I am now in my new pigments update 3 branch. And here's my repository. So let's open up that requirements file. If I use the web IDE, I can make this change still in the browser. The web IDE doesn't actually support dark mode yet completely. So I am still on the developer side. Just it looks light. So just ignore that part. So let's say for my purposes, I need at least version 2 of this particular library. So I'm going to go ahead and make that change. You can see my diff right here. Great. We'll say update pigments to 2.0 plus. And I'm going to go ahead and commit that to the same branch. I'm also going to start a new merge request. This is where I'm going to see my pipeline and changes. Oops, sometimes it does this. It targeted a previous branch or in the wrong project. So I'm going to make sure that I go to the right project here. Let's do that again. And there we go. Okay, so we'll leave a little note and I will create that merge request. So this is still me as the developer. So now I've checked in my changes and this has kicked off a new pipeline. Pretty simple pipeline. It just has a build stage to make sure that everything looks okay in the actual project itself, followed by a security check phase. So you can see I'm running a number of the GitLab analyzers, including some dependency checks and static analyzers. We're going to wait for that to finish. Now, you'll notice down here that vulnerability check rule, the merge request approval that I just set up as the security person. I can see right here, these are all the approvals that I'm going to need. So I didn't set up any of these optional approvals, say for a code review, but I do have this required one here from, this is me as the security persona. So it's got my face, not the monkey. So 0, 1 right now. We're going to come back to this whenever the pipelines are finished running, because right now I can't even merge this because I am waiting for that pipeline. So we're going to flip back over to the security persona side and show off a few of the features that we've got available. So the first thing is the security dashboard. So at a project level, the security dashboard is going to give me a really quick high-level overview of the vulnerabilities in that project over time. This is great for spotting trends or zooming in on a particular area that you want to see, why something went up or down. I can stretch it back here through time. Notice I'm kind of going back. I think as long as you have enough history, you can go up to 365 days here. And then I can see, for instance, between the 8th and the 9th, I actually had an uptick in my critical and highs. So this may be something I want to drill into. It's also a good way to quickly see, am I going up or am I going down in vulnerabilities for a particular project? If I want, I can do things also like toggle off some of these other priorities here, so I can just focus on highs and criticals, for instance. But if I really want to get into it, most of my time is probably going to be spent on the vulnerability report. The vulnerability report shows all of the vulnerabilities that are present on the main branch or the default branch of your project. In my case, the main branch. I can see this is the last pipeline that ran. If there's any errors with the pipeline, I can easily click to see what might have gone wrong. This could be an indicator that maybe something's, let's say, broken in a CI config and I'm not getting my scans properly. That'd be something to investigate. And then here is a list of everything currently in that default branch. So I have a number of options and filters. These are really handy to quickly be able to look at just what I want. So by default, I'm seeing only the open things. These are detected and confirmed items. I can filter by severity, all scanners. This is actually a dynamic list of every scanner configured and that has ever produced any result for this project. It's pretty handy. In fact, if I've integrated any third-party scanners, say from one of our technology partners, their name and scanner will appear here as well. I've also got this handy activity filter, which is a great way to tell me if I've got things that might need my attention because, let's say, no activity. These actually are all the vulnerabilities that don't have either an issue created from them or are still identified by our scanners. Another common use is this no longer detected feature here. So this is pretty handy. So sometimes a simple dependency upgrade, for instance, might resolve multiple vulnerabilities, or you may have many same type vulnerabilities and the fix to take those out could resolve a lot of existing vulnerabilities at once. So when a subsequent scan of the default branch doesn't find a vulnerability anymore, it marks it as no longer detected. So this means that the code or the dependency has actually been removed. Now you may want to double check still. That depends on your process. If it is trust but verify, that's fine. But in some cases, it may just be easier to filter by everything that has this no longer detected indicator, and then you can use our bulk selection feature, and I can easily set the status to resolved for all of those items if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that right now, though. We'll just go ahead and cancel that out. So that's just a handy way to get exactly the kind of information that I need. So let me flip back over to the developer side. I'll give this page a quick refresh. I bet that pipeline is long since finished. And it has. So everything is passed. All the analysis completed successfully. So we now see a new section here. So I have security scanning, and I see that it's detected one potential vulnerability, and it's high. So let me expand it to see what is in here. Well, we'll notice the SAS scans didn't pick up anything, but the dependency scanning did. Now remember, I upgraded the version of pigments. So it seems that the version that I've selected, it actually still has vulnerabilities inside of it. In fact, it has this CVE right here. And apparently there's something that can lead to a denial of service attack. That's not good. Well, our analyzer has actually provided us a recommendation. I can actually just upgrade to 2.7.4 or above. Well, that's great. So normally I might be stuck here waiting for somebody on the security team, or I may not know that I was introducing a high severity vulnerability into the code base if I didn't have this kind of visibility right here in my merge request. So what I can do is I'm going to go directly into my change file. And this is another handy feature. So I can actually make a suggestion that edits this line. So I'm just going to change this to 2.7.4 since that was the minimum non-vulnerable version. And I will add that comment. Non-vulnerable version. We'll go ahead and apply my suggestion here. And this has actually made the change right here directly as a new commit inside of that MR. Oops, we'll just give that a refresh. It picks up, there we go. And so it kicked off a new pipeline. So we're gonna have to wait for this to run again. So while we do that, we're gonna go back to the security side and show off a few more features over there while we wait. So one thing that is available, this is actually available to any GitLab user that has access to any of the security features for any project, is this, we call this the security center. So this is a personalized space where I can actually see any combination of projects that I have access to, see the vulnerabilities for. This is different from like a group level dashboard because I can mix and match between projects from different groups. And if I'm using GitLab SaaS, actually from different namespaces. So let me go to the settings right here and I'll show you. So I could actually add any project that I have access to. I've got two already. So one, this is in GitLab examples. So this is not a project that I own. I just happen to be a developer on this particular project. And then this is the one that I actually own right here. So because I've added both these projects, you'll see I have a very similar vulnerability report. This looks really just like the one on the project level, except I have this handy project selection filter so that I can actually toggle. You'll see that's just my GitLab examples one. And then the customer portal is right over here. So I can actually make this like really customized view of things. So maybe I've got, let's say 5 really highest priority projects that are spread out through different groups in my company. And I want to make sure that I keep on top of those. This is a great way to do that. We've also got the security dashboard here. This is actually what you'll see at the group level. So we have a very similar vulnerability trend lines chart. So I get a quick 30, 60, 90, so I can keep an eye on any trends. But I've also got this project security status scorecard over here. So this is going to assign a letter grade based on how many. So we've got low, C's or mediums, highs or criticals. So if there's one or more open vulnerabilities in a particular project, that's what grade it gets. So I can see that this example project that I belong to actually has 2 high vulnerabilities. So that's why it's got a grade D. And then I've got a two critical vulnerabilities on that customer portal one, the project we've been looking at the whole time. So really, really quick way to go see, is there anything that's going to need my attention across really anything that I have configured here? So pretty powerful ability. Let's flip back to the developer again and see what that pipeline is. We should be all done by now. Oh, almost done. So we got 2 more. We'll give this just 1 more minute. We'll come back over here. And we'll go back to the vulnerability report. So while we're waiting, we'll show off the vulnerability details. So this is very similar to the modal you saw me click on earlier from the developer side. It's a full list of information that is output by our scanner. So you see any particular links that are provided. We've got the actual file location. These are the identifiers that came out of the scanner. So if I want, for instance, this is going to take me down to MITRE's website, information about that particular CVE. And then of course, any actions that may have been taken on this before too. So I have basically a change tracker of who has done what. So in this case, I was actually changing things around on this particular project earlier. Go back over here one more time. Great. Okay, so the pipeline is passed. Everything is all done. Now we're going to look over here and see what we've got. And you'll notice, if you remember before, this had 0 of 1 approvals because there was a high vulnerability. So the approval check had actually gone into effect. Well, now it says that I don't need it because I fixed that vulnerability. Security scanning is now detecting no vulnerabilities. So you'll notice on that dependency scanning, there was that high vulnerability, but it looks like there was actually a critical vulnerability that was already in that 1.2.2 where we started. So in the main branch, there was already an open vulnerability. See, so this one was created a month ago, and I actually had created an issue off of it. So just by doing that update, I actually fixed 2 vulnerabilities that were in there. And so now I've got a clean branch, and I can go ahead and I could merge that myself. In fact, we'll just go ahead and do that. So quickly and easily, I was able to really unblock myself. I can continue forward with any work that I needed to do, and I can kind of repeat the cycle. Now, to show off a little bit of the collaboration side of things, let me go back over to the security engineering side. So let me start with something that we don't have identified yet. So there's no issue for this one yet. It's not part of that requirements file. So let's say that I've done my investigation of this. I've looked in the file here and I've realized, yep, this is a vulnerability that definitely needs to be fixed. I can confirm the status on this one. Confirmed by me just now. So you have that nice little history record there. And I'm going to send this to my developer self and say, this needs to be fixed. Let's take a look. We'll go ahead and save my comment. And because I have mentioned myself, I'm going to give that a second here. There we go. So I have a comment. And if you're familiar with GitLab to-dos, you'll notice they go to my to-do list. I have one, and there it is. So you'll see that I've actually got this at mention, and if I need to, I can click right through to that vulnerability. And I can see exactly what the person on my security team just sent over to me. Now, either one of us could go and create an issue from that. So let's say I want to create an issue to actually address the work. So it's copied over the title of the vulnerability, what the vulnerability name is, and that description is, so this is we've got a backlink right here, which is nice, to the vulnerability itself. And then the description is everything that was just in that vulnerability description itself. So I'm getting all the same information. It's creating it as a confidential issue by default because security tends to be, it's very sensitive and you may want to restrict that. So that's going to default to on. You can always uncheck it if you want. And in this case, I've got some labels set up. I may say, you know what, since this was a high severity, I'm going to put the scoped label on there and I'm going to create an issue out of it. And again, this could have just as easily been done from the security side. That may actually make more sense to do it that way, but I've just done it myself since I was tagged on the issue. So now I've got this high security issue. And of course, the timestamp on this I could use for SLAs. I might even set milestones or a due date based on, let's say I've got a 30-day SLA. I might go with, June the 30th for that. So we'll do that. Now, another thing that may be helpful too is you can set up issue boards. So now that you've got this in issue format, what if I've actually got, so this is my development board. I might want to see my security issues. So I set this up ahead of time, and I've got a column for each of the severity labels that I've got, each of these scope labels. So now I can easily say that I have this high severity vulnerability that's due on June the 30th. I have one over here that's a low. I didn't put an SLA on that. Maybe that's not part of my process, but this is something that I can easily get to. If I flip back over to the security persona, I'm going to have access, since we're both part of the project, I have access to that same board. So you've got both the security team member and the developer. We both have this nice shared view, and we can, set up our workflow processes however makes sense for us. So I think that's pretty much it. I know there was a lot of ground to cover, but hopefully that really highlighted a lot of the functionality that we have available inside of GitLab for security and vulnerability management, and provide some good examples of how you might get your security team and your engineering teams working inside and collaboratively to really, manage the vulnerabilities, but improve that security health of your projects. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed.